Hello and welcome everyone to the 5G Factor. I'm Ron Westfall, Research Director here at the Futurum Group. And I'm joined here today by my distinguished colleague, Olivier Blanchard, who is our Research Director on key areas such as PCs and devices. And today we'll be honing in on the major 5G developments that have caught our eye. And I think we've already gotten a bit of a teaser. It will be related to devices and PCs, very likely. And with that, Olivier, welcome back. It's great to see you. How have you been bearing up between our episodes?
It's good. It's always good to be back. I've been bearing well, as you can notice. I have a bit different background. I'm in the middle of a move, so every time that I'm on the show, there'll be something new on the wall, probably. So it's going to keep evolving.
Well, it's looking good, and I'm a bit green with envy that you're showing off a new look. I'm basically dealing with Christmas decorations and all that good stuff in this neck of the woods. And hey, well, with that, let's jump right in. I think one thing that definitely caught our eye were the recent financial results by HP, and specifically HP's fiscal year Q4 2023 revenue came in at $13.3 billion, which, from our perspective, is signaling the continuation of a trend toward a broad market recovery. And as foreground, that figure builds on Q3's $13.2 billion performance. And it's also important to note that the Q4 revenues reflect only a 6.5% year over year drop compared with Q3's 9.9% year over year shortfall. So clearly, there was tangible improvement. Now, these numbers are suggesting that while persistent macroeconomic headwinds that we're all familiar with are still out there alongside inflationary pressures and stubborn, slow moving inventories, particularly in this market segment, that they're still acting as a drag, at least on specific segments such as PCs. And so the tech sector, as a result, is reflecting that, and particularly when it comes to hardware and device focused businesses. And so, what we want to look at now are the key growth areas. And that believe is something that is indicating positive news on the horizon. Collectively, HP's revenue grew 10% quarter over quarter and twice as fast than total revenue. And so hopefully that makes sense. And with that, Olivier, from your view, what are the key takeaways from HP's Q4 23 fiscal results? What are you saying that's important?
Well, I think there are two or three of them. So on the one hand, it's funny to be excited about year over year shortfall, right? It's
Right.
just right. So,
Ironic.
I mean, it's we're still not out of the woods. So in case you haven't been paying attention, the PC market has been sort of uh, hit a rough patch last year and most of this year due to a
Right.
number of different reasons. Some of them macroeconomic, some of them supply chain related. But also,
Mhm.
for the most part, there was a lot of overbuying following COVID. And so
Yes.
we've been dealing with bloated inventories for many quarters now. And so the industry is still working its way out of that. And so what we've noticed over the course of the last two quarters is instead of continuously dropping quarter over quarter or just the demand being,
Mhm.
at very, very low levels, we're starting to see it rise again. So even though year over year numbers look bad, sequentially, quarter over quarter, they keep improving. Although Dell's earnings numbers for the last quarter showed that it kind of leveled off in the quarter. So I'm a little bit,
Okay.
I want to be a little bit bearish, just a tad on the
Sure.
recovery. I think we're going to get, two steps forward, one step back kind of rhythm until we level off and year over year looks at zero. But anyway, so we're in the midst of this recovery that's very slow with PCs. Now with phones, it's a totally different thing, and we're going to talk about phones later. Mobile's actually doing well. I think Apple had its best mobile or quarter for iPhone yet. Uh,
Right.
Huawei's coming back, so there's a bunch of good stuff there. So it's not tech in the whole. It's just sort of like this asymmetrical recovery that, and PC is lagging a little bit. Second thing I think that's really important is HP is super well positioned to make the most out of this recovery. So on the one
Okay.
hand, one of the big growth drivers is anything AI related, and I think we're going to see that continue into well into 2024 and into 2025. So that's AI related services and it's AI related infrastructure, obviously data centers, et cetera, but also more and more AI on device. And I
Mhm.
think that we'll be seeing some good AI PCs and other AI integrations in HP's portfolio into the next year. And then the third thing is, I think, and it's something that I didn't write about in my coverage of HP earnings, it's their acquisition of Poly.
Oh,
And
yes,
yes,
of course.
so as you know, Poly used to be Polycom. Poly
Mhm.
has actually the camera that I'm using right now is Poly. I have another one in the back, that little one right there.
Product placement, I like it.
Yeah, I have headphones. I have all kinds of stuff from them. HP bought Poly, and what it does is it's kind of integrated the whole hybrid work ecosystem. So essentially,
Right.
HP has the PCs, HP has the cameras, HP has the audio. HP has all of the accessories that allow workers like us to either work really well at the office, or work really well at home, or really well on the road. And I think that this sort of merging, which is still ongoing, by the way, it's not completely operationalized neatly yet. It's still,
Yes.
aches and pains. But watching HP and Poly merge together and blend their capabilities and all their devices together is creating a really good story for IT decision makers in the enterprise and also IT decision makers in the SMB long tail, um, because it's kind of like a one-stop shop, and all of these UIs are becoming much more interconnected. And so, for instance, if you have an HP laptop and you have a Poly camera in the room, immediately they're going to discover each other. So there's going to be a lot of affinities
Mhm.
that generally we see in the Apple ecosystem that are essentially just kind of like developing in the HP ecosystem. And I think that's a really exciting story for the market at a time when we're still work from home, but there's
Right.
a big push to work for at the office as well, and we need ITDMs and companies need solutions that are highly portable and adaptable and that don't complicate things so you don't have to have different sets of cameras for different applications, so everything works from anywhere, and HP has that. And so um, I think its success in the last quarter is indicative of a trend or a direction um, towards this that I don't think any other PC OEM has. No matter how good their PCs are, no matter how good their solutions are, I don't think that anybody has that complete of a hybrid workplace ecosystem as HP now.
Well, yeah, that's I think impressive. What's going on at HP, and to your point, Olivier, yes, the major players that had a heavy stake, that have a heavy stake in the PC market segment, basically all experience the same kind of issues. You mentioned Dell, but also Lenovo, and one thing that I think helped these companies in general is their portfolio diversification,
Yeah.
and that I think is a tribute to their decision making for rainy days, such as what has happened with the PC market segment specifically. And I think, yes, HP's acquisition of Poly does, I think, energize, the HP messaging. And that's not to say that they will continue to face, tough competition. You touched on Apple naturally, but also this is something that at the end of the day is good for the consumers out there, for, the businesses out there. And so stay tuned. We'll definitely be revisiting outcomes from, the completion the HP Poly deal, and naturally looking forward to that. And I think what you touched on in terms of the PC market definitely segues into our next key topic, and that is AI PCs. And I think it's important to note that this is something that HP has a stake in naturally, and that we saw just earlier this quarter when Intel at its Intel Innovation event definitely put the spotlight on it in terms of delivering a new PC experience primarily through AI capabilities that are new and evolving through their upcoming ultra core processors, also codenamed Meteor Lake.
Yep.
And what I think is impressive about that, it features Intel's first neural processing unit, or NPU. And this is something that is essential, really, for accelerating AI inferencing on devices. And that's something that is, I think, clear about the future of AI. It's going to be increasingly hybrid. That is, it's not going to be primarily the data centers, but increasingly not at the data center, quite simply, on devices that will see a lot more AI workload activity going on. In fact, I think a key takeaway from that event is that an increasing amount of the decision making workloads done by AI, for example, generating an answer to a query, is being carried out by devices like a PC or smartphone. In fact, more than 50% of enterprise managed data will be created and processed outside the data center or cloud by 2025. So I think that is a major trend that I know I'll be paying attention to, that we'll be paying attention to. And with that, I think this is also an opportunity to talk about, okay, how is this impacting the 5G ecosystem specifically? And I think one area that is definitely going to be benefiting from this is the connected laptop,
Yeah.
specifically 5G connected laptops, naturally. And we know that major CSPs, top tier mobile operators such as T-Mobile, are offering these capabilities. And so this is an opportunity for us to delve down into what's going on in this segment and why is it important. And I think what we need to understand is that 5G laptops can maintain a continuous, secure, and high speed connection wherever the user is. And that would eliminate having to exclusively rely on Wi Fi or hotspots. And also, that can also reduce downtime for any laptop user out there, especially if they're on the road, if they're in an environment such as an airport or wherever else, where they're not fully confident about the security capabilities there. And we'll talk more about that, certainly. But I also see that it also allows, if a organization chooses to adopt 5G connected laptops, that they definitely will have a more secure implementation. That is, they can implement policies that are unified across basically their laptop fleet. And so that way they can have confidence about the integrity of those devices. And we've certainly seen the headlines when it comes to cybersecurity, ransomware attacks, or it just regular malware attacks and so forth, have definitely disrupted companies, have definitely undermined their security, their brand, and so forth. And so I believe that 5G connected laptops, or connected laptops in general, are going to be increasingly important in as to how organizations support the hybrid workforce you've touched on, Olivier. And with that, what do you see about it, not only the T-Mobile connected laptop proposition, but about the trend here in the market? What do you think is important for us to understand?
I've always sort of been a little bit perplexed as to why connected laptops haven't been a thing yet, really at scale. It just makes sense, right? The whole concept of the laptop is to be portable. So you want to be able to unplug from a power source and have all day battery, at least all workday battery, but preferably
Mhm.
longer. And you want to have connectivity. And to me, only being connected to Wi-Fi is sort of a half measure. It's nice, but I want to be able to work wherever I am. And
Exactly.
and it's not even an issue of whether or not there's connectivity where I am. It just might be a bandwidth issue where there's connectivity, but I'm in an airport or I'm in a hotel, and there's so
Right.
many people on the network at the same time that my connectivity might as well not be there at all because everything's just taking forever to buffer. And with 5G, and especially millimeter wave, you can get a lot more packets of information to users
Right.
faster, and you can get that scale at speed. So it's been a no brainer in terms of capabilities. Like everybody wants laptops to be able to last all day and to connect from anywhere and not have lag because we all want to be productive. And the people we work for and that we're responsible to also want us to be productive. So it's been a strange thing. Now I know that Qualcomm has been working on this for some time. They came out with the 5G
Naturally.
PCs and the connected PCs, and it's been it's been a struggle. Even though they have all of the hardware that they need, they have the antennas, they have the solutions, they can make it work. Uh, PC OEMs have kind of pushed back a little bit on that for pricing reasons, and there might be some channel friction there. But also, it's part of it is the operators haven't necessarily uh, been proactive in trying to push this either, and so it's been this strange standoff between the OEMs and the carriers to see who's going to make the investment first, or who's going to come out with a solution that makes sense, where you don't have to necessarily have a different plan, or where it's not complicated or just overly
Hmm.
expensive. So it's nice to finally be here. I think that 5G laptops and AI laptops are a really good combination. Um, Although there's a little bit of I think there's a paradox there. So the point of having AI PCs, where you don't need to be connected to the cloud to have to run your inference, to run your LLMs and everything else that you're going to do with your extremely powerful on-device AI capabilities. But at the same time, we're trying to build these laptops so that they have 5G connectivity as well, so that you're hopefully never going to be disconnected and never going to have lag issues. So it's interesting to see how things are angling themselves. But I think it's just a natural evolution of the laptop, and I'm glad the carriers are beginning to be on board. And I'm not surprised that T-Mobile is taking the lead on that a little bit, because they do tend not necessarily to be the first to market with things, but to be a little bit more intellectually curious, to market test different ideas, and that's just part of their culture. Is just to innovate more and take chances where some of the other carriers might want to wait and see or just don't see the benefit yet. If T-Mobile sees a niche where they can get into and just get some beachhead and get like a really deep penetration, even with a very narrow segment of users, they're going to do that.
Yeah, I think that is very pertinent to what is different now.
Yeah.
I think those are fair observations. Why hasn't this market been more prevalent, given some of the built-in advantages? And I think to your point about T-Mobile for Business, is that yeah, I think there is a more support in the ecosystem. Intel is also another player that's definitely supporting, how to make connected laptops more attractive to businesses, to enterprises. And I think what is important is that T-Mobile has the first nationwide 5G standalone network.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to be a difference maker, that these are really genuine 5G laptops that are, being built by the OEMs, naturally the Lenovo's, but also, the HPs, Dells, and so forth. So these offerings are out there. However, the catalyst is going to be not just that, 5G networks themselves are going to be improved, but it's circling back to that security issue and some of the other benefits. For example, with Intel V Pro, organizations can definitely get, fleet benefits that you're not going to get by bring your own devices, for example. And that includes policy implementations. But, ask any organization that has had a nasty cybersecurity situation because a worker's laptop at a Wi-Fi hotspot was compromised. Now you're going to see, well, we got to really improve upon this. And this, I think, is going to be increasingly opening up, why, 5G laptop connectivity. And with that, to your point also about, well, what about on device AI inferencing and so forth? Well, I believe that it can be both, because in addition to AI, there are all these other regular enterprise applications that need to be supported on the laptop. And some of them will benefit from AI directly. Some of them don't necessarily need AI. And so I think it's just really it's a question of how to combine both
Yep.
on the same device. And with that, I think that's a great segue into talking about specifically how our device is going to optimize AI processing. And to your point about Qualcomm, they had recently launched the Qualcomm Cloud AI 100 Ultra, which is a new member of its portfolio of cloud AI inference cards. And they are purpose built naturally for generative AI and large language models, which we all reference as LLMs. And what's I think is useful to know is that they're using Qualcomm's AI cores to deliver up to 4 times the performance of the previous generation. So that's impressive in itself. But it's also enabling improved performance for each total cost of ownership dollar. So it's just really, really bringing in the value aspect here. And to underline that, it can support 100 billion parameter models on a single 150-watt card, plus 175 billion parameter models with 2 cards, and even larger models through multiple Qualcomm Cloud AI 100 Ultra cards using the Qualcomm AI Stack and Cloud AI software development kit. And so this is really about this is hybrid AI. Yes, the on-device aspect is important, but also it's syncing it up and optimizing it with naturally, cloud processing. And with that, from your perspective, what is it that Qualcomm is doing that is, going to make a huge difference in how the AI landscape evolves and that it benefits basically all of us?
Right. Well, I think that the biggest thing that you mentioned there is diversification. One of
Yeah.
Qualcomm's, I wouldn't say superpowers, but definitely its capabilities strategically is to diversify. So we've seen them go from essentially
Right.
just 3G, 4G, 5G. We've seen them dominate in phones and then move into other areas like the IoT, like sound. Obviously, they're in pretty much every XR, VR, AR headsets at this point. They're in cars now.
Hmm.
They're doing super well, and network and data center has always been one of those spaces where even though Qualcomm is a chip maker and they make excellent, they know silicon so well, they haven't necessarily had the footprint that they could have had. Simply because they focused on smaller and
Hmm.
different kind of like edge applications, but they've had pretty solid solutions. They've just kind of flown under the radar a little bit, or we've been very specific. But I think the opportunity here for Qualcomm is that on the one hand, they're very good at AI, and they've been
Yes.
good at on-device AI for a very long time. I remember thinking to myself a few years ago that Qualcomm was an AI company before AI got big, right? And I talked to some Qualcomm execs about this, and they just kind of looked at me weird, and they're like, "Yeah, I guess you're right." And they weren't really thinking about themselves as such. I think that now it's definitely in the forefront of their strategy. But the other thing that Qualcomm is really good at isn't so much just the performance, it's the performance per watt. And I
Yes.
think what they bring to this equation, so in terms of the cost of ownership, I look at it through a different lens, or not a different lens, but an additional lens, I guess. And it's that the power efficiency of their silicon is almost second to none. And so
Yes.
one of the big issues, one of the big challenges for data centers in general, but especially when it comes to very thermally expensive processes like inference and training models, is you want to be as power efficient as possible, not just to keep the heat or the thermal envelope as low as possible, but also to just cut costs of running your data center, which requires a lot of energy. So every time that you can use chipsets or systems on chip that are extremely energy efficient and smart about energy efficiency, that's going to be a benefit, even if they're not necessarily the biggest and the best chip to do a particular job. They might be the one that's the best for the power efficiency, best per watt. And I think that that's probably where Qualcomm can differentiate itself from competitors in the market, as it has pretty much in every other segment that they've sort of conquered, or definitely been very strong in.
Yeah, I agree. And in fact, to your point, Olivier, already Qualcomm has recruited HPE to
Yeah,
support the new cloud AI, 100 Ultra chipset, specifically on their ProLiant DL380A Gen 11 server, which naturally is designed for just that, accelerating generative AI workloads, including natural language processing, which I think is still dominating the headlines in terms of why AI across society, but certainly in the workplace.
yeah,
And I think we definitely touched on three key areas that we're going to have to revisit. So
yeah.
stay tuned, folks.
It's
More sequels. Obviously, we're going to talk more about the outcomes of the HP Poly deal.
mhm.
Also, I believe there are some hot key data points that need to be emphasized about why connected laptops, specifically 5G connected laptops.
Yeah,
So stay tuned on that.
yeah,
And naturally, we're going to be talking a great deal more about hybrid AI, AI not only on devices but also at data centers, at the edge, basically wherever needed. And with that, thank you so much, Olivier, for joining today's webcast.
thank you for having me. As always, it's always a pleasure.
Natural. Well, we already are set up for the sequel on this particular set of topics. And with that, thank you everyone for tuning in. Be sure to earmark us in terms of the Futurum Tech webcast series, specifically 5G Factor on the Futurum Group website. And on that note, good 5G day, everyone.